Welcome to Breakout Room 2. My name is Rafida, and I'm pleased to be your host here. For the next session, we will focus on how Industry 4.0 enables the innovation ecosystem. Leading the discussion is Ho Yu Wee, Director, Advanced Manufacturing and Precision Engineering Industry Cluster, Enterprise Division of ITAP. Yui oversees technology development for manufacturing sectors in Singapore, catalyzing the adoption of innovations and technologies in industry through collaborations and partnerships. Since joining ASTA in 2009, he has helped to forge industry partnerships across industry sectors for research and innovation. Joining him are Mr. Matthew Schultz, Operations Director for Haskell APAC, Mr. Jeffrey Ibrahim, founder and CEO of Collaborative Research in Engineering and Technology Center, or CREST in short, Lee Yu Han, co-founder of ARC Industries. And with that, I'm happy to hand proceedings to you, Yui. Perhaps you can begin with a few overarching remarks on the topic to set the context for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafida. First of all, I want to thank the organizing committee for inviting us to this panel. I'm very honored to be moderating this panel with my esteemed panelists here as well. I would like to actually draw our attention to some of the questions that were posed in the earlier panels and events. Right, one that jumped out at me was really people are asking for support for consultants and experts on how to transform in I 4.0. Very interestingly, I mean, in this panel, they are all experts here, or they represent organizations that has got that deep expertise to help companies to do this transformation. I think this is going to be a interesting discussion that we're going to have as we look into Industry 4.0 transformation, the technologies that enable it, and most importantly, the industry ecosystem that we are all in together, and how we can work together to actually achieve this transformation together. Now, to dive right in, I'm going to ask my panelists to do a quick introduction of themselves and their organization, and especially on how their organization enable or even empower innovation in 4.0 technologies, right? Maybe let's hear from Matthew first. Matthew, please unmute. Matthew, you're muted. Yep.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you to the organizers for allowing me to be a part of this exciting panel. I'm Director of Haskell APAC, which stands for Asia Pacific Division. Haskell is a global EPC provider, where in addition to building construction and building design, our direct line of services is process and packaging, engineering, expertise, and IR 4.0 solutions providers. So I think that question that you were asked is pretty relevant to myself, and I know the other panelists. Hopefully we can get into that conversation, but you know, essentially our regional headquarters is here in Kuala Lumpur. And we focus on process and packaging, engineering, and also IR 4.0 solutions in the manufacturing sector, food and beverage, consumer products, more advanced manufacturing like aviation and heavy industrial, things of that nature. Thank you.
Jeffrey?
Okay, hi, my name is Jeffrey. I'm the CEO of CREST. CREST stands for Collaborative Research in Engineering, Science and Technology. So CREST is a not-for-profit company that does collaborative research and talent development and also commercialization facilitation. So we act as a catalyst that brings the best from industry, academia, and government to collaborate and jointly create technology-based solutions for the marketplace. So today we manage something along the lines of 162 R&D projects, and we have managed to achieve about 27% commercialization of the 79 projects that we have completed since April of this year. And we have a community of around 152 academicians, 119 industrial members, 27 government representatives that's involved in our collaborative research. 60% of them are SME and large local companies. So this is the community that we have, but the community at large is around 3 times larger than what I've just mentioned. Just to give an intro of what CRES is.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Johan, please.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. So my name is Johan. I'm from Org Industries. A very quick introduction of our company. So Org Industries, we provide an end-to-end industrial IoT solution that's more plug and play ready, and it actually can be deployed onto industrial machines within minutes. And even the software analytics system can be fully set up on the day itself. So far, our setup, our arrangement, our design serves the manufacturing clients pretty well because it removes essentially the complexity and cost barrier that is usually present when manufacturers decide to adopt a new technology. So for our company, we have deployed our system onto more than 2,000 or almost 3,000 machines across the ASEAN region so far.
Thank you. What did I tell you? I mean, these are all experts here, right? They can help any company in their transformation journey. But I want to go deeper into this area, right? About how you actually do it and who are your stakeholders, right? In this the innovation journey and in this innovation ecosystem, and maybe give us some examples of how you have actually done this innovation successfully with some of these companies that or some of these other organizations that you have. I mean, since Jeffrey, I mean, you have a huge network there. Let's start with you.
Okay, thanks, Yuri. Okay, so we collaborate primarily locally with all these collaborators that I mentioned, but we're not limited to local collaboration only. So we've done exploring initiatives with Asian countries, European, Australians, and American companies, and so on. We've to give some example of what we do, we have successfully attracted some of the best minds in their fields globally. So we are currently working with Professor Suji Nakamura, for example, who attained his Nobel Prize in Physics in 2014 for gallium nitride research. So Professor Nakamura's gallium nitride epitaxy technology from UC Santa Barbara help us expand the local research capability in epitaxy. So a critical process that helps us develop high-powered LED and also enables new applications such as power electronics and micro and UV LED. Another example that we have is one that we worked with a company called Madison out of Brisbane, who invented the IoT device that is AI enabled. They've gotten their FDA approvals. Also here in Malaysia, the MDA approvals. So this device not just will be manufactured out of Malaysia to be shipped globally, but our collaboration with them goes, to the algorithms that they have built outside of their stock AI algorithms that they have in their standard device. So this is where we collaborate with our technologists and medical experts in Malaysia to try and reach out to the global market through the AI algorithms that we collaborate with them. One other final example is one of our SME companies use AI to detect micro cracks on photovoltaic wafers, which is used to build solar panels. So this collaboration doesn't take a lot of money, 130,000 ringgit, which is around just under 40,000 USD, has allowed this SME company to build a multi-million dollar opportunity. This company is called TT Vision, and they've collaborated with a local university in Penang called USM. Okay, just to give you some examples, Yui.
Impressive. Thanks, Jeffrey. I think this is most interesting. I think let's keep the ball rolling. I think, Matthew, can you tell us a little bit more about some of these cases that Haskell has worked on, especially on the manufacturing front?
Sure. And one of the great things about the term IR 4.0 is it's so broad, right? And it covers so many new things and different options in terms of automation. You know, if you look at the very basic definition in manufacturing, one way to look at IR 4.0 is converting manual process to automatic. And in our case, you know, that's converting, for example, manual filling machines, manual mixers, incorporating automation to automatic or semi-automatic systems. There's a whole virtual world part of IR 4.0. We're here in KL, we have a full modeling team where we're able to develop digital twins that I think the keynote speaker mentioned earlier. It gives a wide array of options in terms of driving innovation, making decisions and options quicker. And then you have, you know, more examples of, for example, an SME client of ours was operating on older machinery, where the manufacturer of that machinery didn't really support that kind of machinery anymore, and it was really killing their what we call the OEE, which is overall equipment effectiveness. Machines were dropping out at different times. They couldn't really predict that. So we incorporated some data capturing solutions. I guess the IR 4.0 term is called big data, right? That was essentially able to get them back online. We're actually able to bring them back to their original OEE efficiency and then also increase it 5%.
Thanks, Matthew. Before I call upon Johan, which I actually will ask Johan to share in a slightly different area, I also like to maybe share what my experience had been as well. So I helped the company, a local SME in Singapore as well, to transform their manufacturing and their repair workshop, right, into a fully I 4.0 workshop, right, with robotics and with a dashboard and a lot of brownfield conversion, like what Matthew talked about, right, for old machines. And since then, they've been collecting a lot of data and by moving into preventive maintenance and all that. And just a couple of months ago, he called me up and he said, "Hey, Yui, you know what? With all these things, we got all the low-hanging fruits done, but now I've got tons of data coming out every day. What do I do with them? Do I delete them or what?" So I think that's where the next phase of AI will come in. And that's where I want to ask Johan, right, in Org Industries. I think he did a lot of this kind of projects as well. And maybe he can share some of us, share with us some of this experience also.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Yui. So going back to the question and your sharing, in our experience, in terms of stakeholders, we definitely think that the boss is a very crucial stakeholder, as we need their buy-ins before any new technology or change can be introduced into a particular company. So, and subsequently, what we observe is also that the most successful companies, they usually have a very dedicated project champion team to drive and sustain the change and innovation brought about by a new technology. For example, I 4.0, big data, extreme automation, lights out factory, and so on. And definitely to kickstart any digital transformation effort, we also realize that the important first step is to properly identify the objective, the specific business pain and the problem statement that you would like to solve. So it could be performance management. You want to know what's your OEE, your output, your lost time, or you want to go paperless, or you want to go predictive analysis and so on. But importantly, it must solve the objective. It must solve a particular business pain. I also like to caution the audience that digital transformation or any I 4.0 technologies itself cannot be the end goal. It's very dangerous and it's doomed to fail actually if you treat digital transformation as the end goal. Instead, it must be treated as a tool to achieve your business objective. We also understand that I 4.0 implementation can often be quite daunting. I mean, it's expensive, daunting, complex, you need a lot of human capital and so on. So therefore, we strongly suggest, like what you also mentioned from your experience, your client, to take a step and stage approach and focus on low-hanging fruits at the start and quick wins along the way. So that is, in our opinion, a more successful or more sustainable change. And from our experience, it's also helped that we always encourage our clients in the manufacturing sectors to self-deploy the industrial IoT system in their factories, of course, with our training. Because we would prefer to teach our clients and the end users how to fish. So instead of handing over the fish itself, because it may limit their creativity on how to use the system and their resourcefulness as well. And actually, because of this arrangement, sometimes we are pleasantly surprised at how clients or end users use our system. For one specific example, one of our clients in the food and beverage industry in Singapore actually deployed our IoT system to monitor the smoke opacity that's coming out from their chimney in real time, and as it is a requirement by the NEA, okay, National Environmental Agency of Singapore, without even asking us for help or advice. One even used our IoT device to monitor the diesel level of their tanks and set a recent trigger of a WhatsApp notification for replenishment when it gets a bit lower. So we are completely unaware of these use cases until the company told us about it, and this is quite amazing as it shows that given the right motivation, inspiration, and capability training, innovativeness can prosper in the company.
Amazing. Thank you for the sharing. Now, I would just like to remind our audience that you can type in your questions in the Q&A chat box, and then we can get our panelists. They'll be more than happy to answer the questions. Right, maybe I want to move on, and I want to actually ask Jeffrey, okay, right, to really help us run through, I mean, some of the, because I mean, you have a network there, and it's quite impressive network of different innovation or innovators, right? Of these, the different stakeholders are working together, right? How do you find them? How working together? Are they playing well together, or they're just playing nice together?
Okay. Yeah, I guess different stakeholders for us tends to have different needs. You know, some like government, they look for something else. They look for managing productivity of the business community and how to incentivize them to move forward. Academia wants to be recognized and published and to be working on interesting information. Industry, $1 in, they need to get $3 back, at minimum, for example. So we try to play the neutral entity catalyst role that tries to transcend all these different needs of all these, these stakeholders, including government. So we need to basically step back and find that win-win situation for our collaborators. And sometimes the win is not immediate. It is something that we found. Sometimes, we tend to see this one project between a university and a multinational. They didn't get anything apart from the experience of being involved in that project. But afterwards, they use that knowledge to build a business out of the university. So this is an example of how Motorola Solutions, the design center in Penang, solve a wind noise problem for their walkie-talkies, their two-way radios, using computational fluid dynamics simulation. So what resulted was a patented solution that is now used in all the walkie-talkies designed by Motorola Malaysia, and it is shipped globally. But the IP for this project still belongs to the multinationals and only the multinational. But the professor from this from the academia learned from this project and has since established his own what he calls the vibration lab, Sendirian Berhad. This is Prof. Zaidi in Penang, and he has attracted a lot of other companies to work with him: National Instruments, Dyson, Robert Bosch, Freedom Medical. He's got quite an impressive list of clients subsequent to this one project. So we try to sort of use that as an example for people to understand that sometimes collaboration, you may want to hang on and see the fruits of your labor come in a little bit later. Thanks.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, this is exactly what a collaboration win-win looks like, right? It's especially when everyone wants different thing, that you can actually share a cake and actually have the whole cake as well. Yeah, I'd like to maybe ask Matthew to speak to this as well, right? Because I think there is a certain advantage in having both B2B kind of collaborations and also in terms of public-private kind of collaboration. And in fact, what Jeffrey has spoken to was actually a academia, government, and industry, a triple helix collaboration, which is actually a very strong and powerful model. But I would like to maybe hear from Matthew on how he collaborates with his customers as well.
So, when we talk about stakeholders in that sense, obviously, as my panelists mentioned, the boss, the manufacturer, the person making the investment is the key stakeholder. But when you get into the different entities, also stakeholders, and what it takes to execute an investment, you start to find that there's multiple entities that have to be involved to make this happen, to literally go out, take the idea, turn it into a design, and then go out and execute in the field at the manufacturing center. You start to get, you have your tech platforms or your robotics or machinery manufacturers. Then you have your process or packaging engineering and the expertise. If you're doing like an automated upgrade to a warehouse, for example, you also have a building design concern for power to an ASRS, for example. And all these things, particularly towards the SMEs that don't have large procurement departments, can be quite overwhelming to take that on. So in Haskell's case, we've recently partnered with a company called Rovisis, who is a global systems integrator and also is an expert in automation platforms. And basically what that does is it allows to bring all those entities into one house provider, one team, under one name, and essentially a single point of contact and also risk for the manufacturer. And we find that tends to, all those headaches that you can imagine as a procurement officer in a smaller SME company, trying to figure all that out, and you're not too knowledgeable in IR 4.0, we're able to condense that. And then it's more about the manufacturer. It's about bringing your ideas and helping us understand what your business is and what you want to achieve. It tends to make it a lot easier. And I think all the panelists will agree. I think that's what we want the community to know, that there are service providers out there. You don't have to be overwhelmed or not be an expert in IR 4.0. There's providers like us and many others in the community that can assist you. It's more about just reaching out and saying, hey, I want to take a look at this, or I have an idea, and let us foster that.
Thanks, Matthew. I think that is a great point, that in this transformation journey or this innovation journey, you don't have to do it alone, right? There are many people out there. There are many organizations out there that can help you and are very willing to help you to work together. Johan, I would like to hear from you on this point as well.
All right. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So I think the key thing is that we must all recognize that I 4.0 is an ecosystem. So gone were the days where a single big corporation can actually take on the whole pie and eat it by themselves, right? So instead, the ecosystem actually consists of various specialized technology providers focusing on a very different niche, their individual niche. For example, automation, energy monitoring, machine learning performance management, WMS, and the whatnots, and so on. So we do strongly encourage collaboration between these industrial players, and also with research institute like A-Star. In fact, we work very closely with A-Star as well throughout in the past few years. Like for example, we usually work with manufacturers to get the real-time data from their machines, equipment, provide the visualization, and so on. But when the clients are willing to move on, ready to move on to the next stage with more complex and customized requirements, we more often than not, we need to bring in partners or even research institute like A-Star to fill the gap when they require like a predictive analysis and so on. So these are not things that we are able to do at the moment. And for another example, some clients, because they are very worried about human capital. Okay, you introduce a change, you introduce a new technology into my firm. My fear, one of my biggest fear is that what if it becomes a white elephant? I don't have the human capital. My workers, my operators are not equipped with the knowledge or the skill set to run and sustain this change and technology. So in these cases, we do have partners in a consulting background, operations consulting background to help guide them step by step in an 8 weeks, 12 weeks program to ensure that they fully utilize this system, to ensure that this technology is ingrained into their daily SOPs as well. Yeah, so this is, I think working with partners and collaborating with them is very important.
Thanks. Yeah, all these sounds...
If I could just add to that, you know, to just take that one step further, you know, I think another thing that tends to get overwhelming or a concern is the business case behind the investment. Sometimes that can be very challenging to get your head wrapped around because there are so many options out there, and I'm not only talking financial, but I'm talking more, if I bring this system in, how is my manufacturing or packaging process going to benefit, right? And can I accurately predict what that target is and then go out in the field and execute it? You know, in terms of the business case, you know, MNCs, world name brands, for example, are often in a more sometimes suitable position from a capital standpoint. SMEs might not always be the case, and when they have these options out there, that's a massive concern. And so again, I think it's going back and letting the community know that there's providers out there who are experienced in that, and all those entities that my panelists were just talking about, and myself as well, capturing those and bringing those into the business case study, and putting a thought process on how that plays into your investment. But ultimately, it's about achieving that, right? Which is what matters. So giving that level of confidence that, you know, you don't have to take that on as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, Matthew, I mean, you kind of read my mind talking about that, because the next thing that I'm going to talk about is really, I mean, all these things that we are all talking about here sounds nice and good, right? There's just like no reason why we shouldn't get on to this. But obviously, I mean, it costs money, right? And especially, I mean, for Matthew, right? I mean, typically, right, we would know, I mean, MNC solutions, you know, coming from the West is always very expensive and all that, right? Exactly, I mean, I wanted you to speak to the cost of IoT conversions, right? And what does it cost? And then and you give a wonderful answer on actually the business case. So we should look at the value rather than the cost. But I mean, again, even on the cost perspective of it, right? Are there any additional comments from you?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Some of the feedback I get, particularly from the SME community, is IR 4.0 sounds expensive, right? And in some cases it can be, and in other cases, I think one of the panelists mentioned that there's very simple solutions that are not a huge amount, where if you capture and focus on the right particular data or process that you're looking to improve, is entirely viable. And again, if it's all about the target that's going to make me achieve in my process, right? There's no point in moving forward with any solution if it's not going to be viable, right? Again, I think the key is with the business case study is having someone who understands all the different entities and what the aspects are, combining those into that calculation. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and then actually it brings me to the next question as well. I mean, I saw it in the Q&A box as well. So, are we able to take this in a progressive manner, right? So we take one step at a time, right? How do we actually plan this out? Interestingly, I've also spoken to companies who came around and then in talking to me, and they were saying, I had embarked on some of these journeys before. It didn't work for me, right? And now, the thing that I bought is just sitting there like white elephant, like what Johan talked about just now as well. So in this perspective, right, how does a company then actually plan out and execute? And are there steps to it so that they can contain the cost in this whole journey as well?
Can I just say, you might also have to consider the opportunity cost of not doing it, right? Because going with Industry 4.0 opens up a wealth of opportunities to companies. And for SME companies, for companies that are currently traditionally doing stuff in their own way, by forging into Industry 4.0, you can become part of the supply chain of other companies, including large multinational companies. So consider doing Industry 4.0 because you can't afford not to go for those kind of opportunities.
So, I think if I could add, to that process, that step-by-step procedure that you're talking about, yeah, that's certainly the smart way to proceed, in my opinion. I think that my panelists called it the low-hanging fruit method, I guess, right? What happens with us is we'll get contacted by a manufacturer, and our process or packaging team will go out and do an assessment of the process. And knowing that the options and the technologies that are out in the market, will analyze that process as to what are potential options and then what are those steps, right? For example, if you're switching from a manual to an automatic liquid filling machine, for example, and you're going to increase your scoop count drastically, you're going to have to address your packaging, and then also your palletizing, for example. So there's a step-by-step process there that has to go in order, and I would consider that the big fruit if I'm on the same page with my panelist. Then you start getting into things like data capturing, optical sensors or case counts, things like that are probably the more low-hanging fruit options, but are still ultimately, in the end, gonna ultimately be necessary. As my panelist just said, the way this industry is moving, if you're not making those investments now or very soon, you're most likely going to be left behind.
Excellent. Well, Jeffrey really jumped the gun. I mean, when talking about what happens if you don't, right? Because that is actually a very, very important question. I think that probably the last topic that we're going to address here today. right? The idea that most people buy into Industry 4.0 technologies has always been in the area of productivity increase, cost cutting, better management. All these are well and true, right? And I think Matthew has put it as even as low-hanging fruit, right? The big fruit, the real question is what happens if you don't, right? That means what are the opportunities? What are the different business model innovations that can be actually enabled by I 4.0, right? This is actually another area that is worth exploring and worth thinking about. It can be different for different enterprise and different businesses and different sectors. I just want to ask my panelists, have you observed anything that in this area that you can speak more about?
Sorry, I missed that question, Yui.
Yeah, so on not missing the opportunities, what
Right.
are these opportunities that you have observed in your work as well, in working with different companies?
Okay. Well, I mean, if I can just start first, and then I'm sure the other panelists will jump in. Essentially, I think I'm a proponent for the collaborative model where you have to leverage on the strengths of others in order for you to get to where you need to go. And yes, you have to build you have to build your capability in stages. And the earlier session that we had, where Productivity Council lady talked about how the government in Malaysia enables companies to come forward to say, I want to be part of this journey. And they will help do the assessment of where they stand with regards to, how much have they done and where do they fit in. And also, what are some of the service providers out there that can enable them to go in steps going forward. So I think, reach out, talk to, platforms like the government platforms or people like us, and we will try to point you out into the different resources out there for you to leverage, to use in order for you to start your journey.
Yeah, if I could just add, and I think those are great points there. I mean, the opportunities that are out there, I wouldn't say that they're endless, but the technology is moving forward in so many different realms that, some of the feedback I've gotten is, well, I've been doing this process for so long and it works right now and I'm making my bottom line. So, that looks nice and great for those other things, but that's not really relevant to me. But the fact of the matter is this initiative around the world is going forward, right? And the government, the local agencies are obviously picked up on that and are making the right incentives to try to bring our community to the forefront of that. Ultimately, I look at data, whether it's data capturing or data management, and then also speed and the speed of a process. And if you're a local bottling manufacturer, for example, here, and you can go from manual to an automated process and increase your SKUs to broaden your market, right? Just imagine how fantastic that is, because of some IR 4.0 solutions that may have not have been available 5 or 10 years ago. So just to reiterate, reach out and make contact, even if you're not sure what you have in mind, right? Or if you just want to see, hey, is my process, is there an opportunity there, right? It's more about reaching out and engaging those to help you. I think that's that kickstart that we've talked about in this panel. And let's do the assessments and let's find out some ways that we can build your business that you may have never thought was possible before. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing, Matthew. So yes, so in my case, I have to go back to the core again, the business case. Like, okay, a lot of clients actually ask me, okay, so where should I start I 4.0 is huge. It could be confusing, could be complex. A very good method is definitely to see where you are right now and what is the biggest pain point that you observe in your company. So for example, it could be a very high defects rate because things are done very manually. So you probably need automation. And what's the ROI? Is it justifiable? Or it could be that, yes, I am running 24 hours, but I cannot meet my sales demand at all. Should I open a new factory or should I optimize my processes? And what if I manage to optimize from 40% to 60%? And of course, with this mindset, you probably know that the answer could be, I need a true real-time accurate data for me to understand where I stand and move on from there. And I would also like to make a point that innovation opportunities should not always be viewed as a big revolutionary change for a company. You do not have to always aim for AR, VR, digital twin, lights out factory at the start. Those can be very daunting. So in fact, I'm of the view that it can be evolutionary or even very mundane. Innovation opportunity can be very evolutionary or even mundane. So as long as it solves a business problem and achieves an ROI. So for a very specific example, a medium-sized biscuits factory in the region, they actually managed to optimize their critical control parameters, or they call it CCP. In this case, the oven temperatures and the conveyor belt speed. They optimize these two parameters, and overall, they managed to increase the line speed by 20% without compromising on the quality, the end quality of the biscuit. So this can be done fairly easily because of because of the fact that they now have high resolution real-time data, which they do not have in the past, like what Matthew mentioned previously. This is available right now. So, and another example would be a bottling plant. Because they also based on the hard data that's presented to them that was previously not available. And they based on this data to make a switch to a cartoning packaging strategy after they realized that the energy cost, the overall energy cost for their current arrangement, plastic string wrap, is way more expensive. Although at the start, they think that, okay, a raw material cost is cheaper, let's go for it. But when they analyze the overall energy cost based on data, they realize that, okay, it's right in front of me. I'm losing a few $100,000 a month. Should I make the change? Right? This is data doesn't lie. So these are some of the opportunities that I see.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to thank all my panelists. I think we are almost running out of time. I think we really starting to scratch the itch, right? I just want to give you one last data point about why you should really go into this transformation in earnest. Because I mean, where I am in Singapore, where I am in my job, I'm talking to more and more companies, SMEs, different manufacturing plants, coming to me talking about Industry 4.0 transformation. Now, there is a real risk about not going there because the rest of the world is going there, right? And what are the business opportunities moving ahead with and without a Industry 4.0 enabled or even empowered plant? I think that is a big thing to really consider in the future of the business.